The road stretched endlessly into the dark, a thin ribbon of asphalt cutting through silence, the kind of silence that felt heavier the longer you sat in it. His car hummed softly beneath him, headlights carving a narrow path through the night. But inside, everything was still. Keanu Reeves had always been comfortable with stillness. Not the kind that comes from emptiness, but the kind that lets you notice things. The small things. The things most people rush past without ever seeing. He drove without music, without distraction. Just the quiet rhythm of the road and his thoughts. To most, he was a global icon, a face recognized in every corner of the world. But out here, on a lonely highway past midnight, he was just another man chasing distance. That's when he saw the gas station. It appeared almost suddenly, like something forgotten, washed in pale fluorescent light that flickered faintly against the darkness. One of those places people stop at without thinking, never remembering it later. A single car sat parked near the edge. No movement, no sound. He slowed, something instinctive pulling him in. The tires crunched softly against gravel as he pulled up to a pump. The air felt colder here, thinner, like the world had paused for a moment too long. He stepped out, stretching slightly, his eyes scanning the quiet surroundings. It wasn't fear he felt. It was something harder to name, a subtle wrongness. As he began fueling the car, his gaze drifted toward the small convenience store. The glass windows reflected more darkness than light, but inside, he could see movement. Slow, deliberate. Someone was there. He finished and made his way toward the door, the faint buzz of the overhead lights growing louder as he approached. When he stepped inside, the bell above the door rang, a sharp, lonely sound that seemed to echo longer than it should. Behind the counter stood a woman. She was pregnant, visibly so. Her frame looked fragile under the weight she carried, one hand resting unconsciously against her stomach as if protecting it. Her uniform was slightly wrinkled, her hair loosely tied back, strands falling out as though she hadn't had the time or energy to fix it. But it was her face that held him. She smiled when she saw him, or at least she tried to. "Good evening," she said softly, her voice polite but distant, like it was running on habit rather than intention. Keanu gave a small nod in return, his expression calm, but his eyes observant. Always observant, because the smile didn't reach her eyes. Her eyes told a different story entirely. They were tired. Not just physically, but something deeper. The kind of exhaustion that builds quietly over time, unnoticed by everyone else until it becomes a part of you. There was tension there too, hidden just beneath the surface, like she was holding herself together by force. He didn't speak right away. Most people wouldn't have noticed. They would have paid, left, and forgotten her within minutes. But Keanu didn't look away. He noticed the slight tremble in her hand as she adjusted something on the counter. The way her shoulders tensed every time the silence stretched too long. The faint hesitation before she met his gaze again, as if she wasn't sure it was safe. Something was off, not obvious, not dramatic, but real, and heavy. He picked up a bottle of water, more out of instinct than need, and walked toward the counter. Each step felt slower, more deliberate, as if the space between them carried something unseen. "You're working late," he said gently, placing the bottle down. She nodded quickly. "Yeah, just night shift." Again the smile. Again it didn't stay. There was a pause. A small one. But in that pause, everything seemed louder. The buzzing lights, the faint hum of the refrigerator units, the quiet breathing she tried to steady. Keanu reached for his wallet, but his attention never fully left her. Not in a way that made her uncomfortable, but in a way that felt aware, present, like he saw her, really saw her. And for a brief moment, something flickered in her expression. Not relief, not yet, but something close. Then it was gone, replaced by that same practiced calm, as if whatever she was carrying, she had already decided she had to carry it alone. Outside, the world remained silent, empty. And inside that small gas station, under flickering lights, stood two people, one who noticed everything, and one who was quietly falling apart, hoping no one would notice at all. The receipt printer made a dry, mechanical sound as it spat out the thin strip of paper, breaking the silence just enough to remind them both where they were. The woman tore it carefully and handed it over, her fingers brushing his for the briefest second. They were cold. Not the kind of cold from weather, but the kind that comes from exhaustion, from being stretched too thin for too long. "Thank you," she said, her voice softer now, almost automatic. Keanu didn't take the receipt right away. Instead, his gaze lingered. Not on her face this time, but on the small, almost invisible details people rarely paid attention to. The faint discoloration along her wrist. The way her sleeve was pulled just slightly lower than it needed to be, as if hiding something. The tension in her posture, like she was bracing for something that hadn't happened yet. Or maybe something she knew would. He took the receipt gently. "You've been here all night?" She hesitated. Just for a fraction of a second, but it was enough. "Yeah," she replied, forcing a small shrug. "It's quiet. Quiet." That word lingered in the air between them, heavier than it should have been. Because this didn't feel like peaceful quiet. It felt like isolation. Keanu nodded slowly, glancing around the store. The shelves were half-stocked, a few items scattered out of place. A coffee machine in the corner blinked. An error light. The whole place carried the feeling of something neglected, like it existed, but barely. Like her. He looked back at her more gently this time. "You okay?" It was a simple question, but it hit harder than either of them expected. For a moment, her expression froze. Not dramatically, just enough to break the rhythm she had been holding on to. Her lips parted slightly, as if she might answer honestly. But then, "I'm fine," she said quickly. Too quickly. Her eyes dropped to the counter as she started organizing things that didn't need organizing, straightening items that were already straight. Avoiding his gaze like it might pull something out of her she wasn't ready to face. Keanu didn't push. He understood that silence can say more than questions ever could. Still, something in him refused to let it go completely. "You shouldn't have to do this alone," he said quietly, almost as if speaking more to the air than directly to her. Her hands stopped moving, just for a second. Then she continued, faster this time. "I'm used to it," she replied, her voice thinner now, less steady. Used to it. That was the part that stayed with him, because no one should ever be used to this kind of weight. Before he could say anything else, the sharp vibration of a phone broke through the moment. Her phone. It sat just beneath the counter, but the sound was loud enough to cut through everything. Her entire body reacted instantly, shoulders tightening, breath catching, eyes darting downward like she had been expecting it, or dreading it. She didn't answer right away. The phone kept vibrating. Once, twice, 3 times. Each second stretched the tension tighter. Keanu watched carefully, not intruding, not demanding, but noticing. Always noticing. Finally, she grabbed the phone, her fingers trembling just slightly as she glanced at the screen. And whatever she saw, it drained the color from her face. I need a second," she murmured, stepping back. But she didn't move far. Just enough to turn away, to create the illusion of privacy in a place that offered none. She answered the call, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Yes, I'm here." A pause. No, I didn't. I told you I can't leave. Another pause. This one longer. He couldn't hear the other voice, but he didn't need to. He saw it in her. The fear. The way her free hand instinctively moved to her stomach, protective, almost desperate. The way her shoulders curled inward as if trying to make herself smaller. I said I'll handle it, she whispered, more urgently now. Just, please. She stopped. Completely. Her eyes flicked toward Keanu for a split second, wide, uncertain. Then she turned away again. I understand, she said quietly. I won't mess this up. The call ended. Silence rushed back in, heavier than before. She stood there for a moment, unmoving, staring at nothing. Then, slowly, she placed the phone down, her hand lingering on it like it might ring again. At any second. When she turned back, that same smile returned. Fragile, forced. But this time, it cracked just enough for the truth beneath it to show. Keanu didn't say anything right away. He didn't need to, because now he knew for certain. Whatever she was dealing with, it wasn't just exhaustion, and she wasn't just alone. She was afraid. And outside, beyond those flickering lights, the empty night suddenly didn't feel empty at all. Part 3, for a while, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It was heavy. The kind that settles into a place and refuses to leave, pressing gently against everything until even breathing feels louder than it should. The fluorescent lights above flickered again, buzzing faintly, casting uneven shadows across the small store. Keanu remained at the counter, not in a hurry, not checking his phone, not pretending to leave. Just there. Present. The woman moved, slowly behind the register, but her rhythm had changed. Before, she had been forcing normalcy, straightening items, keeping busy. Now her movements felt distracted, disconnected, like her body was there, but her thoughts were somewhere far away. Or maybe somewhere she was trying not to go. You don't have to stay, she said suddenly, her voice quieter than before. Not cold, not rude, just distant. Keanu tilted his head slightly. I know. A pause followed. She looked at him then, really looked this time, as if trying to understand why he hadn't already walked out like everyone else would have. Most people don't linger here, she added, almost under her breath. Most people don't notice things, he replied gently. That caught her off guard. Her fingers stilled against the counter again, her gaze dropping for a moment before lifting back up, uncertain. There was something in his tone, no pressure, no judgment, that made it harder for her to hide behind the mask she'd been holding onto all night. Still, she tried. I'm just tired, she said, though it sounded more like something she had repeated to herself many times before. Keanu gave a small nod, but his eyes didn't leave her. Tired doesn't usually look like that, he said softly. The words landed differently this time, not like a question, like an understanding. And for a brief second, something inside her seemed to crack. She turned away quickly, grabbing a cloth and wiping the already clean surface of the counter, her movements sharper now, almost defensive. You don't know anything about me, she said, not angrily, but firmly, like she needed to believe it. You're right, he admitted. Another pause, then, more quietly. But I know what it looks like when someone's carrying more than they should. That hit. She stopped again. This time longer. Her shoulders lowered just slightly, the tension shifting, not gone, but no longer held as tightly. The cloth in her hand slipped against the surface as her grip loosened. For a moment it felt like she might speak, like something real might finally come out. But instead, she shook her head faintly, almost to herself. I can handle it, she whispered, and that's when Keanu saw it. As she adjusted her sleeve, just slightly, just enough, The fabric pulled back for a fraction of a second, long enough, a bruise, faint but unmistakable, dark against her skin, old enough to be fading, but not old enough to be forgotten. His expression didn't change dramatically. No sudden reaction, no shock, just a quiet stillness. But inside, something shifted, because now the feeling he couldn't name before had a shape, and it wasn't good. Before he could respond, the door chimed again. Both of them turned instinctively. A man stepped inside. Mid-30s maybe, older. His presence filled the space in a way that didn't match its size. Not loud, not aggressive, but heavy. Like he brought something with him that didn't belong. The woman's reaction was immediate, subtle to anyone else, but not to Keanu. Her posture stiffened. Her breath caught just slightly, and for a split second, real fear flashed across her face before it disappeared behind that same practiced calm. The man glanced around, then at her. They didn't speak right away, but something passed between them. Something tense. Something unspoken. "I thought you said it was quiet," the man muttered, his tone low but edged. Her eyes flicked toward Keanu, then back to the counter. "It is." The man's gaze followed hers, landing on Keanu now. He didn't say anything, but his stare lingered a second too long, measuring, questioning. Keanu met his gaze calmly, unshaken. The silence stretched again, but this time it felt different, tighter, more dangerous. The woman moved quickly, stepping forward as if to redirect attention. "Do you need anything?" she asked the man, her voice controlled but thinner now. The man didn't answer immediately. He just kept looking at Keanu. Then finally, he smirked faintly. "Just passing through." But the way he said it didn't feel casual. It felt like a warning. Keanu didn't move, didn't step back, didn't break eye contact. And in that moment, something shifted again. Not just in the room, but in the story itself. Because whatever this was, it was no longer hidden. And the woman behind the counter, she wasn't just tired, she was trapped. And now, someone else knew it too. Part 4. The man didn't move far from the entrance. Instead of browsing the shelves like any normal customer, he lingered, hands in his pockets, eyes drifting slowly across the store before always finding their way back to her. It wasn't curiosity. It wasn't even suspicion. It was control. The kind that didn't need to be spoken out loud. Behind the counter, the woman. The low hum of the engine outside didn't fade. It stayed there, steady, patient, like it had all the time in the world. Inside, the silence pressed harder. The woman's eyes remained fixed on the door, as if she could see through it, as if she already knew exactly what waited on the other side. Her breathing was shallow now, uneven, one hand still protectively resting over her stomach while the other gripped the edge of the counter for support. Keanu followed her gaze briefly, then looked back at her. "He's not leaving," he said quietly. It wasn't a question. She shook her head faintly. "He never does." There was no anger in her voice, just resignation, and that was the part that felt the heaviest. Keanu took a slow breath, thinking, not rushing, not reacting blindly. He had seen pain before, in different forms, different lives. But this was something ongoing, something that had roots. "How long?" he asked gently. She hesitated again, but this time it wasn't about hiding, it was about admitting. "A while," she said, her voice barely holding together. "Long enough that I stopped counting." The words hung between them. Long enough. That meant this wasn't new. This wasn't a one-time mistake or a bad night. This was her life. Outside, the engine revved slightly, just enough to remind her it was still there. waiting. Her shoulders tensed immediately, her body reacting before her mind could catch up. Keanu noticed the way fear had become instinct for her, the way she didn't even question it anymore. "You don't have to go out there," he said. Her eyes snapped to his, wide. "I do." "No," he replied calmly. "You don't." "You don't understand," she said quickly, shaking her head. "If I don't, he'll come back in. And next time—" She trailed off, unable to finish. She didn't need to. Keanu understood enough. He glanced toward the door again, his expression unreadable, then back at her. "Then we don't let it get to that." She stared at him, confusion mixing with fear. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you're not alone right now," he answered simply. Something in that sentence hit harder than anything else he'd said. Not dramatic, not loud, but steady. And real. Her eyes softened for just a second, like she wanted to believe it, like part of her had been waiting to hear something like that for a long time. But then reality pushed back in. "You don't know him," she whispered. "You don't know what he's capable of." "And you shouldn't have to deal with it alone," Keanu said, his tone firm but still gentle. She stepped back slightly, torn. "If he sees you interfering—" "He already has," Keanu interrupted quietly. That stopped her. Because it was true. There was no going back to invisible now. Outside, the engine cut off. The sudden silence was louder than the noise had been. Her breath caught. "He's coming back," she said, panic rising quickly now. Keanu didn't move away. If anything, he seemed more grounded, more present. "Okay," he said calmly. "Okay?" she repeated, her voice trembling. "That's all you're going to say?" "It means we're not running from it," he replied. The door handle rattled slightly, not opening yet, just a test. Her entire body stiffened, fear flooding back in full force. She instinctively moved closer to the counter as if it could shield her, one hand gripping it so tightly it almost hurt. "Please," she whispered, her voice breaking now. "You should go. I don't want you getting hurt because of me." Keanu looked at her, not with pity, not with hesitation, but with something steady. "You didn't cause this," he said, "and I'm not leaving you here to face it alone." The words settled into the space between them, firm, unshakable. The door swung open. The man stepped back inside. This time, there was no pretense of being a customer. No slow wandering, no fake calm. His eyes went straight to Keanu, then to her, and back again. "I told you 5 minutes," he said, his voice colder now. No one responded immediately. The tension in the room tightened like a wire about to snap. Keanu remained where he was, unmoving. The woman swallowed hard, her voice barely steady. "I didn't ask what you needed." The man cut in sharply. He took a step forward, and this time, Keanu stepped forward. Too, not aggressively, but enough to stand between them. The movement was small, but it changed everything. The man stopped, his eyes narrowed slightly. "You really want to involve yourself in this?" Keanu met his gaze, calm as ever. "I think she deserves a choice." A beat of silence. Then, the man let out a short, humorless laugh. "Choice?" he repeated. "You don't get it, do you?" He glanced at the woman, and something dark flickered in his expression. "She doesn't have one." Those words landed like a weight, heavy, final. The woman's face paled, her hand tightening over her stomach again as if protecting more than just herself now. Keanu didn't look away. "Everyone has a choice," he said quietly. The man's smile faded, and whatever came next was no longer just tension. It was confrontation, and it was about to break. The silence after those words felt different. Heavier. Final. The man's expression didn't change right away, but something behind his eyes did. The faint trace of amusement vanished, replaced by something colder. Something that didn't need to raise its voice to be threatening. For a moment, no one moved. Then he exhaled slowly, like he was deciding how far to take this. "You think you understand what's going on here," he said, his tone low and controlled. "You don't." Keanu didn't respond immediately. He didn't need to fill the space with words. His presence alone, steady, grounded, was already saying enough. Behind him, the woman felt it too. For the first time since this started, she wasn't completely alone in that fear. But fear was still there, strong, unforgiving. "This isn't your problem," the man continued, taking another step forward. "Walk out now, and it stays that way." Keanu finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "It became my problem the moment I realized she was scared." The man's jaw tightened slightly. "She's fine," he snapped. The woman flinched. Not dramatically, just enough. Enough to make the truth undeniable. Keanu didn't look back at her, but he felt it. That small reaction carried more weight than anything she could have said. "No," he replied quietly. "She's not." The tension cracked. Not loudly, but enough to shift everything. The man's attention snapped fully onto Keanu now, whatever restraint he had been holding on to slipping just a little. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe," Keanu said, "but walking away would be a bigger one." Behind the counter, the woman's breathing grew uneven again. This was escalating faster than she had hoped, faster than she could control. "Please, stop," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Both of you, just stop." Neither of them moved, but her words changed something. Not in the man. In Keanu. He turned slightly, just enough to look at her, not breaking the space between them, but reminding her he was there for her, not for a fight. "You don't have to protect him," he said gently. Her eyes widened. "I'm not..." She started, but the words fell apart before they could form. Because it wasn't about protecting him. It was about surviving him. The man laughed under his breath, but there was no humor in it. "You really don't get it," he said, shaking his head faintly. Then he looked at her, and his voice changed, softer, but more dangerous. "Tell him," he said. "Go on." The woman froze. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. "Tell him why you're still here," the man pressed, his eyes locked onto hers now. "Tell him why you don't just walk away." Her hand tightened over her stomach again, her entire body trembling now, not just from fear, but from something deeper. Something she had been holding in, for too long. Keanu watched carefully, saying nothing this time, giving her space, giving her control, because this moment, it had to be hers. Tears filled her eyes, slipping down slowly as she shook her head. "Please, don't make me..." "Say it," the man interrupted sharply. The word hit like a command, and something inside her finally broke. "I owe him money!" she cried, the words rushing out all at once, raw and unfiltered. "A lot of money. I couldn't pay rent, I couldn't keep up with anything, and..." Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. "He helped me at first," she continued, her breathing uneven. "Or at least, I thought he did. But it kept getting worse. More interest, more pressure. I tried to leave. I tried to find another job, but..." She swallowed hard, her hand pressing protectively against her stomach again. "He said if I didn't pay, he'd make sure I never could." The silence that followed was suffocating. Keanu absorbed every word, his expression steady, but his eyes darker now, more focused. It wasn't just fear, it was control, calculated, deliberate. The man didn't deny it. Didn't even look ashamed. Instead, he shrugged faintly. I gave her options, he said casually. She made her choices. That's not a choice, Keanu replied, his voice quieter now, but sharper. The man's gaze flickered with irritation. It is when you sign your name. The woman shook her head, tears falling freely now. I didn't understand what I was signing. I was desperate. And now you're still desperate, the man said flatly. Those words landed hard because they were meant to remind her, to keep her there. Keanu finally stepped fully forward now, not aggressively, but with purpose. Not just standing between them physically, but shifting the weight of the moment. She doesn't owe you her life, he said. The man scoffed lightly. Everything has a price. Keanu didn't argue. He just looked at him. Really looked. And in that silence, something shifted again. Because this wasn't just about money anymore. And deep down, they all knew it. Behind him, the woman's quiet sobs filled the space, her strength finally, giving way under the truth she had been carrying alone. And yet, even after everything she had just revealed, something still felt incomplete. Like that wasn't the whole story. Like the worst part still hadn't been said. Part 7. Her sobs didn't come loudly. They came quietly, unevenly, like something breaking in slow motion. The kind of crying that doesn't ask for attention, only release. Keanu didn't turn around immediately. He stayed where he was, grounded, steady, letting her have that moment without overwhelming it. But he could feel it, the shift. The weight of what she had just said had cracked something open, and now everything else was close behind. The man, however, didn't seem moved. If anything, he seemed impatient. Are we done here? He muttered, glancing toward the door, as if this was nothing more than an inconvenience to him. Because I don't have time for this. Keanu's eyes didn't leave him. You've taken enough of her time already. The man exhaled sharply, irritation rising. You keep talking like you know what's going on. I know enough, Keanu replied. Then you know this doesn't end with a conversation, the man said coldly. Behind them, the woman suddenly spoke again. No, it doesn't. Her voice was different now, still fragile, but clearer, stronger in a way that didn't come from confidence, but from having nothing left to hide. Both men turned. She had stepped out from behind the counter, slowly, carefully, like every step mattered. Her hand still rested against her stomach, but not just protectively anymore. It felt grounding, like she was holding on to something that gave her the strength to keep standing. You're right, she said, her eyes fixed on the man. This doesn't end with money. The man's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of something uncertain passing through it. Don't do this, he warned quietly. But she kept going. You keep saying I owe you, she continued, her voice trembling but steady enough to carry the truth. But you never tell the whole story. Keanu watched her closely now, sensing it. This was it, the part she hadn't said, the part that had been holding everything together and tearing her apart at the same time. The man took a step forward. That's enough. No, she said, louder this time. The word cut through the room, clear, final, and for the first time since. He walked in. He stopped, completely. Her breathing was uneven, tears still falling, but she didn't look away. You didn't just lend me money, she said, her voice breaking but pushing through. You took everything when I couldn't fight back. Keanu's expression hardened slightly, his attention sharpening. The man's jaw clenched. Watch. What you say? Or what? She shot back, her fear now mixing with something else. something raw, something desperate enough to become courage. "You'll remind me again that I have nowhere to go?" Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. But she didn't stop. "You told me if I didn't pay," she continued, her hand tightening over her stomach. "You'd take something from me that mattered. More than money." Keanu's eyes flicked to her, something deeper settling in. The man didn't respond this time. And that silence. That was the answer. Her voice dropped, barely above a whisper now, but somehow louder than everything else. "You said you'd take my baby." The words didn't just land. They shattered. The air in the room seemed to disappear all at once, leaving behind something suffocating. Keanu didn't move, didn't speak. But something inside him shifted instantly, something protective, something unshakable. The man let out a slow breath, like he was deciding whether to deny it. But he didn't. Instead, he tilted his head slightly, his voice calm in a way that made it worse. "I said there are consequences," he replied. "You chose not to listen." The woman's knees almost gave out at that, but she steadied herself, holding onto the counter behind her. "I didn't have a choice," she whispered. "You always have a choice," he said. "No," Keanu spoke, his voice cutting in for the first time since her revelation. Both of them turned to him. "That's not a choice," he said again, quieter now, but firmer. The man's eyes narrowed. "You're really going to play hero here?" Keanu didn't react to the jab. He stepped forward, slow, deliberate, placing himself fully between them now. Not just a presence, a barrier. "She's done being afraid of you," he said. Behind him, the woman closed her eyes briefly, as if those words alone gave her something she hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. Even if it was only for a second. The man studied Keanu, something calculating returning to his expression. Then, slowly, he smiled. Not kindly, not even confidently, just knowingly. "You think this ends tonight?" he asked. Keanu didn't answer right away, because deep down, he knew it didn't. The man took a step back toward the door, his gaze lingering on the woman one last time. "This isn't over," he said, quietly. Then he looked at Keanu. "You just made it worse." And with that, he turned and walked out. For a few seconds after the door closed, the world felt unnaturally still. No engine outside, no footsteps, no voice, just silence. The kind that comes after something breaks, but before you realize how much damage has been done. The woman stood there, unmoving, her hand still pressed against her stomach as if letting go might make everything collapse all at once. Her breathing was shaky, uneven, like she had been running for miles without ever taking a step. Keanu didn't rush toward her. He stayed steady, grounded, because this moment wasn't about panic anymore. It was about what came after. "You're okay," he said quietly. She let out a soft, broken laugh at that. Barely a sound, more like air escaping a place that had been holding too much for too long. "No," she whispered. "I'm not." Her eyes dropped to the floor, and for a moment, it looked like she might shut down again, like everything she had just fought to say would disappear back into silence. But it didn't, because now, there was nothing left to hide. "I told you part of it," she said slowly, her voice trembling but clearer than before. "But not all of it." Keanu didn't interrupt, didn't try to fill the space. He just listened. And that was enough. She took a shaky breath, her fingers tightening slightly over her stomach. Not just protective now, but conflicted. "He didn't just threaten to take my baby," she continued. "He said he knew someone who could make it disappear. No questions asked." The words came out uneven, but once they started, they didn't stop. I didn't believe him at first, she said. I thought it was just another way to scare me. But then? Her voice cracked and she swallowed hard. He showed me. Keanu's expression shifted slightly, his focus sharpening. Showed you what? He asked gently. Her eyes lifted to his, and in them, there was something deeper than fear, something hollow. He took me to a place, she said quietly. A clinic, but not a real one. Not the kind people go to for help. The room seemed colder. He said if I didn't pay, if I didn't keep doing exactly what he told me, her voice dropped to almost nothing. That's where I'd end up. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Keanu didn't speak right away. Because some truths, you don't rush past. And tonight? He asked softly. Her lips trembled. That wasn't just about the money, she admitted. He told me. If I couldn't pay soon. She paused, her breath catching. He'd stop waiting. The meaning landed instantly. Clear. Final. She wasn't just being controlled. She was running out of time. Tears slipped down her face again, but she didn't wipe them away this time. She didn't try to hide. I didn't know what to do, she said. I kept thinking. If I just worked more, if I just held on a little longer. She shook her head faintly. But it never stopped. It just got worse. Keanu stepped closer now, not too fast, not overwhelming, just enough to close the distance. You held on, he said quietly. That matters. She looked at him, her expression fragile. It doesn't feel like it, she whispered. It does, he replied, because you're still here. That hit differently, because it was true. Despite everything, she was still standing, still fighting, even if she didn't feel strong. Outside, the night remained quiet, but it no longer felt empty. It felt like something had shifted, like the story that had been closing in on her had finally been interrupted. What happens now? She asked, her voice small but real. Keanu didn't hesitate. Now, he said, calm and certain. You don't go back to that. Her eyes widened slightly. It's not that simple. I know, he said, but it starts there. A pause, then more gently. You don't owe him your life, and you don't owe him your child. The words settled into something deeper than comfort. They felt like truth. For the first time, she didn't argue, didn't shake her head. She just stood there, breathing slowly, as if trying to understand what it might feel like. To believe that. Keanu reached into his pocket, pulling out his phone. We're going to get you somewhere safe, he said. Tonight? She hesitated, not because she didn't want to, but because hope felt unfamiliar. Why? She asked softly. Why would you do this for me? Keanu looked at her, not as a stranger, not as a problem to fix, but as a person who had been unseen for far too long. Because someone should have noticed sooner, he said. That was it. Not a speech, not a grand reason, just something simple and real. Her composure finally gave way completely, tears falling freely now. But this time, they weren't just from fear. They were from release, from being seen, from not being alone anymore. And in that small gas station, under flickering lights, that no longer felt quite as cold. Something heartbreaking remained. Not just what had happened to her. Not just what she had survived. But the truth that for so long, she had stood in plain sight. And no one had noticed. Until now.